even. Okay, hello. Hello, one person is here. Can you hear me now? Okay, we're just going to wait for the rest of the students to join. Thank you very much for your patience, and I'm sorry again about the difficulties we're having. So I'm just going to make sure that I copy the link into the old chat. Okay, so please bear with me while we wait for the other students. Okay. Division 4. Hello, Anya. It's nice to have you here. We have had a bit of difficulty with the connection and the links today. So hopefully the other students will join as well. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes. But how was your weekend, Anya? What did you get up to? What did you do on your 3-day weekend? So while I just let you respond, Anya, I'm just going to try and share the link for our other students. So please do bear with me a second. The new link has arrived today. So we're just going to wait maybe. Okay, perfect. You can hear me. This is excellent. We'll just wait for a couple more students. And Anya, fantastic. You were at the seaside. I hope you had a really nice time. And I hope you enjoyed the nice weather. It's fantastic that the seaside and the beaches are now open for us. It's really good. Okay, so thank you for your responses. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes for the other students. But while we're waiting, like normal, I'd just like to quickly say something about our company for those students who are watching this in the future and are watching our videos for the first time. So our company is Cercle, and we like to help you improve your English and become more fluent. And I can see that more students are joining now. I just want to confirm that everyone can hear me. And I apologize again for the technical difficulties. Hopefully there is a solution and we're doing our best to find that. So let's start with the lesson, and hopefully the rest of the students will join later on. So what I want to start with is by talking about the time. So I think this is very difficult for some people, and it's very hard to remember how to form and structure the time in English. It's very different to the French, and I think it's also really important to learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a time in the chat, and I would like you to write down the time, the correct way to say the time. So for example, if I write this in the chat, you can write down 2 o'clock. Okay, so obviously some of these are very simple and they'll be very easy to understand, but then we'll start to talk about some more difficult structures for time. So I hope some students from before are joining now, and I apologize again for the difficulties today. But let's start with this exercise. So can you write down what this time is for me? Let's start easy before we start talking about the more difficult times. So what time is this? I'll give you a couple of seconds, and if you are really confident with telling the time in English, don't worry, it's a really good recap. And I suggested this for the lesson today because a lot of people still make errors. So fantastic. It's nice to have you back, Hamza, in the lesson, and sorry about the issues from before. But fantastic, 1 o'clock is the correct time here. Okay, my next question. Here, this is 12 o'clock. But what other ways can we say 12 o'clock? Okay, So I'm not asking you to write down 12 o'clock. Okay, fantastic, Arena. If it is 12 in the afternoon and morning, in between this period, we talk about midday, après-midi, exactly. So midday is 12. Normally it's when we have lunch. We have lunch at midday, fantastic. What do we call 12 p.m. at night, 12 a.m., sorry? Midday, noon. So you're referring to 12 at lunchtime. Fantastic, Arena. But if it's very late in the day, normally when most people are sleeping, what do we call that? So midday is when we have lunch. When we're sleeping, what time of day is that called? So we have midday and perfect, Anya. We call it midnight. We have midday when we normally have lunch, and we normally sleep at midnight. So I just have a couple more questions, and exactly, AM. So if there's any times after midnight, for example, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., this is the start of the next day. I have a couple more questions just to explain to the students who have just joined. Thank you very much for finding the new video, and I apologize again for the difficulties before. It always feels strange talking to myself when no one else can hear, but I'm glad the issue has been resolved. We're just going to talk about some common errors made in English, and I decided to start with time. We started very easy with 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So if it's on the hour, this is normally how we structure the time. Okay, so let me ask another question. This time that I just wrote down, there are 2 ways to read this time. I would like to ask or see which student, which one of you can write down the 2 ways of writing this time. How can we write this time? There are 2 ways you can do that. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. So fantastic. There is one description. Arena has written, and Ania, 20 past 10. So if we ever are talking about the minutes past the hour, or on the other side to the hour, we start with the minutes, okay, before the hour. So here, we're 20 minutes past the hour, but we start by saying 20 past 10. Fantastic. That is one way of saying it. And the second way of saying it is 10:20. So we can also read the numbers as they are. Fantastic. I just have a couple more and then we'll move on to another exercise. There are also 2 ways of saying this time, okay? And for one of these, one of the ways of saying this time, we use a specific phrase, okay? And it's very similar to when we are 15 minutes past the hour. So Arena has written here the correct expression which we use when the minute hand on 45. We say 1/4 because a quarter is when you divide something into 4 sections. So the 4 sections we have are 12 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, and 9 to 12. Those are our 4 sections. And when the minute hand is at 45, there's 1/4 remaining before 12. So we say 1/4 to the hour. We use to similarly as a direction. I go to the supermarket. I go in the direction of the supermarket. I could say, I am going to Germany. Okay, it's the direction that I'm going in. Similarly to this, it's the direction the minute hand is moving in. It's moving towards the hour. So perfect. I'm happy to see that we were able to recap the time and everyone had some really good contributions. And as you've also written down, it's correct to say 8:45. You have the choice which one you would like to use. So what I'd also like to talk about is some free time activities. Again, conversational. And I love this topic because everyone has a different opinion. And it really is like a group lesson when I ask one of these questions and we have many responses. It just means we can learn from each other because everyone has different hobbies and they enjoy doing different things on the weekend. So what I'm going to do is, again, I've scrambled words together and I'm going to write them down in the chat and you have to try and unscramble the words. Okay, so I promise it will be easy when I write down the first sentence. So the theme is free time activities. So the first one is go to the Vecimo. Okay, you need to unscramble Vecimo, and then we're going to have a small conversation about this topic. And we're just going to talk about different themes. Okay, so go to the Vecimo. What could that be? We need to unscramble the word Vecimo. Okay, we'll see who the first student is to correct that. Maybe it's difficult. So this is a very good question, Hamza. Perhaps I didn't explain it very well, but I scrambled up one of the words. So perhaps I can give you the answer to this. So the word Vecimo is not a word. The phrase is go to the movies. Okay, so I took the word movies and I scrambled it up. I mixed, je mélangeais les lettres, so it would be more difficult. So my next question is, how often do you go to the movies? How often do you go to the movies? So here, even though we're talking about something we do in our free time, we're learning. I'm sorry if I didn't explain that clearly. I think everyone was confused about that question. So as I was saying, even though we're talking about the movies, we're learning how to structure answers to important questions. It's very common that we're asked how often we do things. How often do I give a lesson? How often do you send a report? It's a really important question and structure that we need to learn. So how often do you go to the movies or the cinema? We use those words interchangeably. I believe movies is more American and cinema is more of an English expression. So I should have said go to the cinema. But let's have a look at some suggestions. Anya goes twice a month, fantastic. Hamza goes to the movies once every month. So that's a really good sentence there, Hamza. If we talk about a specific period of time, for example, a week, a month, a year, if we do something one time or two times, we have a special word that we use to describe that. It makes us sound more professional, and also it's incorrect to say that I do this one time. If we do something one time, we say once. I run once a week. If we do something two times, we say twice. Okay? So if anyone asks you how often, how much, when do you do this, if you do it one time or two times, just remember you need to say once or twice. So let's have a look at some other suggestions. Never. Virginie does not like the cinema. I would recommend going, Virginie. There are some really good films and it really does help listening to a film in English. So hopefully you have the opportunity to go. So Chloe's written, I never go to watch movies because of the situation. I understand and hopefully will have a chance to go again. Alina goes twice a month, and Arena has a question. Okay, so we pronounce often with the T. Okay, that's a really good question, Arena. It depends on the accent. And if I may give another example, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about conversational phrases in English. Some people say, what do you like? Okay, so people who like to explain clearly, and perhaps they're from the central part of England, they will say, what do you like? A lot of people will use slang and they'll try and shorten some phrases. And I know that the French do this too. So we're all guilty of shortening phrases, which grammatically is maybe not the best thing to do. Some people will say, what do you like? Okay, so your question is, I would pronounce often with the T because it's professional, it's more formal, and it's the correct way to say often. But a lot of people, as you said, Arena, will say often. How often do you do this? It really does depend on the pronunciation and where you are, but a really good question, Arena. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next free time activity. And Virginie has written here, I like the sun. And I love the sun too, Virginie. It's a lovely day today. Hopefully we'll have some more sun this summer. Okay, so the next free time activity is go out with this word. So again, this is not a real word. I've scrambled the letters around and you need to try and work out what the word is. So go out with, what do you think that word is? Fantastic, Chloe. Of course it is friends. My next question is, what activities can you do with friends? Or I should ask, now we're able to go outside, obviously with some restrictions. What would you like to do with your friends? And I'm happy to help, Arena, no problem at all. If anyone else has any questions, please do ask and I'd be happy to help. So what activities can we do with our friends? I just had lunch with my friends. That's an example. I had a sandwich from Monoprix and it was a nice experience. We were talking. Let's have a look at some suggestions. Chloe's written here, we can take a walk. Yeah, in French, I believe the correct verb is promenade. If you're talking about promenades in English, you can just say we go for a walk, or we like to walk in the park. You could be more specific about where you walk. But a really good suggestion, Chloe. Yeah, talk and laugh with them. That's always important. Ania has written here, going to the movies. Yeah, fantastic point. You can go once or twice with them, maybe. So, Virginie likes to walk to and go to a restaurant. Shopping as well. Perfect, Alina. So you can say, I like shopping with my friends. Fantastic. Let's talk about some more vocabulary now, and we can come back to those later. Okay, my next question is, what is the difference between trip and journey? So these are words that a lot of people can get confused with using in sentences. They're used for some similar topics, and I believe that leads to a lot of confusion. So if you could, please write down a description of trip and journey for me. So I'll wait a couple of minutes for some responses and then we can read through those. And hopefully this will help you understand more clearly the vocabulary that is here. So let's have a look at some of the suggestions. And remember, I need a description for trip and journey. But thank you very much to Virginie and Ania who have written down the sentence here. So Virginie has written, trip is travel. Yes, you're exactly right, Virginie. A trip is a type of travel, a type of vacation, I would say, a type of holiday. We normally talk about a short trip, which Ania has written. For example, yesterday was a holiday in France. It would have been possible to go for a trip in perhaps the south of France. A holiday is quite big. We normally go abroad for a couple of days. A trip is normally just for a couple of days, a short period of time. And if we have a look at some other suggestions, Virginie thinks a journey is more short. Chloe thinks a journey is the time that you take to go to your destination. I think, Chloe, you've explained it better than I could. You're exactly right. A trip is often referring to a small vacation, a very small holiday, whereas a journey is more about the traveling part, okay? For example, last weekend, I went on a trip to Marseille. For my journey, I took the train. So the journey is more about how I get from Paris to Marseille. And the trip is more about the 3 days as a whole. It's also important to note that we can also use trip to describe a journey. It's common in English for someone to ask you, how was the trip? And this question can mean, how was the journey? Or how was your little vacation? You need to understand the context of the conversation for this. So trip can be used to describe the journey, how you got from Paris to your destination, or it can be in reference to a couple of days that you were on vacation. So if someone's still unclear, please do write in the chat and I'm happy to explain again. But my next comparison and contrast is up and above. What are the differences between up and above? So again, these are two words that are very similar. I'm in Paris now, so my background changes a lot. I like to keep everyone interested. And I thought this floral background would be nice today. So I'm in my office, I have my face mask and my hand sanitizer, and I'm in Paris. But I would love to go to Marseille and enjoy the sun there. Maybe when it's safe to travel, I will go to Marseille. Okay, so what is the difference between up and above? What are the differences between those two words, up and above? Perhaps you can use them in a sentence for me. You can write up. I won't give an answer because I would like you to write one for me. But you can either describe what up and above mean, or you can use them in a sentence for me. So up, above. I'll just give you 1 more minute, and if there are no suggestions, I will be happy to give you an answer and an example sentence. So fantastic, Ania. You're first again. And Ania has written here, I go upstairs. So this is in reference to a direction. And I think that clearly explains what up is. Up is a direction, okay? So it's this direction. If I'm going to point, up is in the sky. The opposite of up is down, okay? So we have up, down, and I apologize if the webcam has flipped the camera, but we have left and we have right. On your computer, it may be the other way around, left and right, but the idea is that we have directions, okay, up and down. So if I asked you to look up, it means I want you to look up in the sky, okay? So if we have a look at some other suggestions, we have some sentences which we can go over because I think there are some confusions. But again, it's very difficult because the words have similar meanings too. I really like a sentence Chloe has written here, which is an expression we use in business. Chloe has written, he is on his way up, okay? And the direction is up. And up is often in reference to a positive experience. So when Chloe says he is on his way up, it's more of a metaphor. If you think of a big building like Montparnasse, normally you have the employees at the bottom, then you have the managers, then you have maybe their managers, and then the CEOs at the top of the building, like a hierarchy. So if you think of a hierarchy and you have the CEOs at the top and everyone else at the bottom, if you say he's on his way up, the direction this way, it means they're going up the hierarchy. So it's an expression to say they're doing well, they're being promoted. Okay, a really good sentence, Chloe. And Chloe's also written here, above is a position, and you're exactly right. I think, Chloe, you can give the lesson next time. You know everything. But you're exactly right. If we have two objects, for example, this TV remote, if I want to describe a position of my pen is above the remote controller, okay? It is the direction up from the controller, but we don't say that. We say the pen is above the remote, okay? So here, the pen is on the controller. Here, the pen is above the controller. So I hope that's clear. Normally, some people can get confused. People can think it's the opposite. People use them in the wrong context. Up is a direction, and above is more a position. So please do write in the chat if you still have difficulties understanding the two. Okay, so what I'd like to talk about now is an exercise we did in a previous lesson, but I think it's really good to open up discussions. So I'm going to write a word, and that word is start. And now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions surrounding this topic. But my first question is, what is the opposite of start? What is the opposite of start? So we can start something and we can't something. What is the opposite of start? And while you're writing, I'm going to ask my next question because I think some of you know this, and exactly the answer is to finish. What have you started recently? So in confinement, what have you started recently? Have you started a new hobby? Have you started a new book? Have you started a new job perhaps? What are some things that we can start? Or what are some things that you have started? At the beginning of the confinement, we started doing YouTube live lessons. And it's really nice to see that you are still enjoying the content, and it's really nice to teach all of you every day. And it's nice to see the same faces. I hope that these do help you. So let's have a look at some suggestions. Okay, so Chloe is starting to do more sport. Fantastic, Chloe. I think it's really good to get exercise and to be active. It's really good. Hamza has written here, I have started a new habitude. Okay, so I'm a little bit unsure of what habitude means, but your grammar in the start of that sentence was fantastic, Hamza. So, and Anya has written here, I started to improve my English. You're doing a fantastic job, Anya. You always write fantastic letters, and it's lovely to have you in the lessons. So I'm looking at the time, and we've about completed half an hour. I would like to thank you all for joining the lesson today, and I sincerely apologize for the difficulties we had at the beginning of the lesson. If you have any questions, or you'd even like to suggest a topic to learn next time, please do write it in the chat, and I will try and work on some new content, something fun and interesting to teach you. Again, I hope you had a fantastic weekend and have a really nice afternoon and evening. Thank you again for coming, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.